Jonathan, and I'm the designer and developer of Evidentia. Some of you have been to some of our classes in the past. My goal here tonight is to talk about citation templates and how to use them and when to use them and how to create your own. What we're going to do is we're going to see how to create your own citation template from an existing one, as well as how to do one from scratch. And then we'll do a little bit of extra kind of extra credit work. Kind of the first step in using Evidentia is to identify your source. And that is probably the least exciting part of the whole exercise. Although every time I say that, there's a librarian in the crowd who really enjoys it. So I have to be careful. As an example, what we're talking about when we're talking about citations, I'm going to show you the one that I've got for the 1790 U.S. Census and show you the detail mode. When we talk about listings, we have both the source listing, typically get used in a bibliography, and then we have the citation listing, which is something that typically gets used when we reference material in our reports. So if you think about a book, the source listing tells you about the book, and the citation listing tells you about the page or the paragraph or the chapter in the book, and maybe some additional information about when you access. You'll see usually the source listing again in bibliography, and you'll see citation listings in footnotes or endnotes. Probably you've heard the mantra, cite your sources, cite your sources, cite your sources. And Evidentia tries to get you started with that process by making it the first thing you do to get out of the way. And in fact, until you've cited your sources, you can't even begin to do the cataloging of information, which is where things really start getting interesting in the program. There's a lot of different ways that you can cite your sources. You can write directly in this box. Excuse me for just a minute. Let me turn off my tooltips. But what we're talking about tonight, obviously, are the citation templates. Let's pretend we're going to create a new source. And that gives us access to the template button. And from the template button, we can select from a suite of templates, most of which are based on evidence explained. And in fact, in the template description, it'll actually usually reference what part of evidence explained the reference comes from. We wanted to make sure you got started with a basic set of templates. And the idea is you select a template, then you can fill out the fields in the template. As you fill out the fields, obviously, you start to get see what your citation and your source listing look like. And then when you save it, that gets saved into the proper field, and you've recorded the information for your source and for your citation. There are a few defaults, like the citation title. If you've not done one, I haven't typed it in first, uses the source title -CITE. Here it just default, because I filled out the template first, it defaulted to the title. But the whole idea of the template system is basically to get you going and get that citation out of the way as fast as possible. I do want to say this. Evidentia is not a citation program. It gets a lot of attention as a citation program because the first thing that you do in Evidentia when you're working with a source record is create a citation. But it is so much more than that, and the real meat comes in when we start cataloging information and analyzing our evidence. However, tonight's not about that. Tonight is about how to create your own templates. To get to the customization screen, you simply drop down the List Manager menu, and you go to the Template Manager. And what you're presented with is a list of the current templates on the left-hand side of the screen, and a field where you can preview those templates on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll notice this little green flag here next to the majority of these templates. You'll be able to see later some that won't have that. If a template has a little green flag, that means that it It's what I call a system template. Those templates are locked. You can't edit those. You can't change those. So if you want to make a change, for instance, to a template for the 1790 US Census for digital images, you click on it, and then you can copy it. And you'll see now I've got a 1790 US Census digital image dash copy, and I can rename that over here. And now I can edit, somebody had a comma in the wrong place, or you just wanted to reorder some things, or you feel that the placeholders aren't something that are very helpful and you want to create your own. And you notice here that the copy has a little copy icon next to it, and those are editable. So if you make a change, it will actually offer to go into all your source records that have used the template this was based on and update them to use the new template. And this assumes, of course, that the field names have remained the same. Now, before we create a template, I want to talk about why you might want to create your own template. And I actually want to start with the opposite of that. And that is why you might not want to create your own template. Templates are for reuse. If you are going to use a particular citation format over and over and over again, then templates obviously can be very handy because they provide shortcuts for creating the same format instead of just copying and pasting. If you are citing one source and you require a new format because it's not something that's in Evidentia, but it might be the only time you ever cite this source, or you're only going to cite this source once or twice, it is not worth your time to create a new citation template. Let me repeat it. If you're only going to use the template for one or two citations, do not waste your time. Do not worry about creating a citation template for those citations because it's not worth your time. The idea is you want to create citation templates for those things that are going to be repeatable, things that you'll use over and over again. There's a couple different ways you can create your own templates. You can freeform text them, just go ahead and start typing away. You can copy an existing template and make changes to it. And yeah, you can do a combination of both. Be demonstrating in that in a little bit. This is simply a preview screen right here. This will just show you the preview text for each template. If you want to create a brand new template, you have to hit new. Right now, this is locked. It's a system template. You have to create your copy, and now you can start editing the copy. And if you've already created one, like we did earlier, that's editable, and I just need to hit I don't have to copy it, I just hit the edit screen, and it'll take me into an editable copy of my template. You'll see here I've got the 1790 US Census for digital images. And this is a pretty generic listing. This is generally used where you've gotten some sort of database. Here you see it says database with images, okay? And you see here that I've created another one that's specifically on ancestry. What's the difference? If I look at this one, what I find out is some of the fields in the previous one are already filled out for me, and I don't have to fill those in. I frequently use family search for my census citations. So I'm going to go back to the template manager, and I'm going to select my copy here, and I'm going to edit it. I can look in these fields and say, you know what, the website title, family search, HTTPS FamilySearch.org. And I'm going to do the same thing up here for the, I don't know why it keeps moving on me here. Actually, let me double click it and take it into the editor. Title is Family Search. And I know there's a more formal title than that. I'm just taking some shortcuts. And here I want parentheses, https://FamilySearch.org. And I go back. Let me save that. Save and back. I don't want to make any changes. When I go to identify a source and I pick a template, and oh, I didn't change the title. Here I would have changed the title and said FamilySearch.org or whatever it is. I select it, and you'll see that the name of the website and the URL is already pre-populated with all the proper punctuation. This will be handy because, frequently pulling data from Family Search. Why should I have to type in the URL every single time? So that's one possible way that you can create a custom template by making a copy of an existing template. Kai Chandler in the UK is the one who asked me to start filling in the gap for some of the missing tutorial videos from our website. Kai sent me an example of a citation format that he would like to see a template for. This is the 1939 register for England. It was register wasn't exactly a census, but it kind of filled in 1939, providing a lot of the same information that a census record does provide. And Kai was concerned, first of all, he wanted to make sure he had the format right. And then he wanted to see how to turn this into a template because Kai envisions using this template over and over and over again. I looked at what he did and I compared it to a couple of things that I found online. And actually he did a pretty good job of doing a good citation. One of the points that I want to make is if you're creating a brand new citation template, you want to start with a good citation. Okay, you're not going to build this typically from scratch, and I'll show you the advantage of doing it this way. This is the source listing. Let me go back to the template manager, and I'm going to create a new template. I'm going to call it the 1939 registry for England. Okay, so that's how it'll pop up on my list. Categories do I want to assign it? This can help with filtering. I can look here at some of the, no, it doesn't show me the catalog categories I already have. I want to do England, and I want to tag it with registry. So that'll make it a little bit easier. Maybe vital record. Oh, there we go. Vital Records UK. Yeah, I want to use that one. This will make it a little bit easier to find it. Typically, what I would do here in the description is what is the source for the format that I'm going to be using. And actually, I did a little bit of research, and this format is referenced in Evidence Explained, section 6.51. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. All right, now, what do I want my source listing to look like? Well, I want my source listing to look like that. The question is, what fields do I need to populate, and what fields always stay the same? In this particular case, there's very little information that will be customized for the source listing, because I'm always talking about England 1939 register. And the repository for that is the National Archives of the UK, which is in London. The only thing that might change here is the RG number. And I did look up earlier. Let me see if I find it. Place is the borough or district. Oh no, piece number does include the RG code. What do I want this to look like? I know that piece number is going to come into play more meaningfully in the citation listing. So I'm just going to say that I want to be able to input the RG number. The first thing I want to do is look at the field I want to replace, and I'm going to put braces around it. And what the braces indicate in the template is this is going to be a placeholder in the fill in the blank fields. What I want to put inside of it is not an actual value, but what I want the placeholder to be. And some of you may know more accurately what an RG number is. I'm just going to say I want it to be the RG number, which, what did they say it was? Yeah, it's part and parcel of the piece number. So, and really, that's the only field that I'm going to customize in the source listing. So the only thing that's going to change in the source listing between one source record and another is the RG number. So that's the only additional information that I'm going to need in the source listing. So the next thing I want to do is look at my citation listing. So this is a sample of a citation listing for a record in that collection. And here I'm going to have a lot more dynamic information. The formatting here is a little bit different. If you look at the source listing, it's England, period, 1939 register, period, RG number, period, and then the repository. Here it's the 1939 register, comma, England, comma, the RG number. Now this is going to be the same RG number as the one I'm going to input for the source listing. And I don't want to have to enter it twice. And the way I get around that is I'm going to put brackets around the same field. I'm not going to capture here the comma. And as long as I use the same name, the field will only appear once. And Evidentia will be smart enough to populate, when you enter in that one field, it will populate that field in both the source listing and the citation listing. Now the next thing that's dynamic is I want comma, the word piece. Now I could probably also do this RG number / piece number, but I'm just going to replace the piece. And I'm going to use piece as the field name. And hopefully the person filling this out will understand what that means. And if they don't, well, we'll show you how to do something with it in a little bit. I've got an image number. And optionally, I have a line number. And you don't have to abbreviate it MBR, that's just something that I do. So what I'm going to do is I am going to capture all of this. Last but not least, I'm going to enter here household name. Let's see what we've got. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Identify source screen, template. Category called England. There's my new template. I see here what it looks like, and I select it. And you see here that I've got fields. Now the fields don't have any examples, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. But I enter in the RG number, piece ID, the image number, line number, and the borough or district. And you see here that it's working just like any other template. Evidentia will automatically add to the end of any template this addendum field. And the idea of the addendum field is sometimes in your footnotes, you actually want to include information about what's in that citation. Or you might have this source citing another source, and you may want to copy and paste another citation into the addendum field so that you have a nested citation. And actually, we'll talk about that in a bit. And if I save the citation here, you see I've got all these example given placeholders to make it a little bit easier to use the template. You know, what am I expecting? Back to the template manager. You see here, it's got a little flag there. It says it's custom, like that. And you see the preview here, and you see that, go and edit, see that there's a place here called placeholder template. And this is where you can put in your examples, make it a little bit easier for users to use. The way you do that is you do it in brackets, put the field name as you named it in the template, exactly as you named it in the template. And then you enter the pipe character, which is the shifted character from the backslash, and what you want the example to be. So in this case, I'm just a 1. That's all I know that it looks like. So there's the first one. I should get a decent placeholder on that. The next one, now I'm going to do another bracket. And I don't think you've got to do these in order. Example was 2356. Unfortunately, all these fields in the registry seem to be codes, and that makes it a little harder to understand what they're looking for. Image number. .024. If I want to provide multiple examples, comma 32, comma 100. Maybe those are all valid entries that I might want to put in there. So I want to show more than one example in this case. Do the same for a line number, which I probably don't need to do. Type character, 1, close bracket, open bracket, and then I got household, borough, district. Comma, district. Now here I'm giving a little more information because I'm actually saying I want the borough first, I want the district separate, second, and I want a comma between them. That's as good an example as any. And household name. Household name. And closing bracket. And now, if I save and go back, I actually want to see what happens if I go back to the one that I was already working with and open up the template. You see here that the placeholder fields are now showing. So I have examples. One of the things that I discovered, sometimes fields are optional, or you may not have the information. The next syntax that I created was to allow for optional fields. People don't always have, might not always have the jurisdiction. If they don't have the jurisdiction, I don't want this space, and I don't want this comma. I want it to flow smoothly directly into U.S. Census, comma, page, column, line. Okay, so I put angle brackets around it, angle bracket, space, I do want there to be a space if it is there, and a comma at the end, and the field name in the middle. And what that does is it tells Evidentia if this field is empty, do not put anything between these angle brackets into the citation. Okay, so let's do an example. Doing a new source. I'm just going to use the regular one, and I fill out the fields AAA, BBB, CCC, 2011, Boston. I don't know, making this up. Maybe I don't have page or person of interest. You'll still see those fields and the angle brackets here, okay? Because it doesn't know you're done. But once you save it and see the citation here, you see that the fact that there was a line number there, there really wasn't any good. If a field, and there's actually two fields that I did that with, if you think that sometimes you're not going to have a user populated field, because you don't always have that information, but you'd like the citation listing to still look clean, use the angle bracket format. If you put asterisks around the field name, and it doesn't just have to be around the field name, what will happen is that when you use the template, it will italicize that text. Kai is not looking at a record that he got from the National Archives of the UK in London. He is looking at a database image of a 1939 registry record. And those two are not the same thing. Because what he was actually looking at was a digital image from Ancestry.com. If I look at formats for digital images, I've got some generic ones here. Should be one for, yeah, there's not a digital images, international censuses UK. I don't have a good generic one unless you count these as vital records. But generally, if you look at evidence explained, you want to reference where you got the record from, not where the database got the record from. But actually, it's good to have where the database got the record from. So I'm going to show you one way we could do that. If I was to select this, I showed you that addendum field at the end, and that's where we could add the citing line. But what I'm going to do here, since Kai is going to be using this, I'm going to pick something that I've got from Ancestry already, and I'm just going to pick 1830 census. I'm going to copy it, okay? And I'm going to change the title to 1939 registry, comma, England. That is a digital image from Ancestry.com. So I don't need census year. I do keep Ancestry.com. I want to spell England correctly. Maybe I want to add England, and I want to add that UK, census UK, etc. Here's the reference. The reference is probably going to stay the same. The source listing is actually going to stay the same, except I am going to put in this in place of the 1830 census, since I'm not looking at the 1830 census. Here I want, well, let me see. I actually have evidence explained in front of me here. And for the source listing, it's pretty simple. Yeah, that's really all I need. And date accessed. I'm going to keep it database with images. So let me take out the reference to 30 census. I'm going to leave all the rest. Okay. When I go to citation listing, I'm going to make basically the same changes. I'm going to change this to the 1939 register, England, comma. I don't want a jurisdiction here. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to say all this can go. So I'm going to come back to this. But you see here I have citing credit line source of this source. I'm going to take that out because I'm actually going to put in citing, and I'm going to paste in, oh shoot. All right, I need to save this and come back to the one we created. I want to copy this, and then I want to go back to the one we're working on. Edit it, open this one up again, and I am going to be citing, and what I'm going to put here is the template that we created for the registry had we been looking at the registry exactly itself. Entry for household name. And I also want to reference the RG number, piece, and I want the image ID. But this one's different because in the bottom of the citation, I want the image number as presented in the archive. Here, I want the ancestry image number. So there are two image numbers I want to use here. I'm done. I would want to go in and fix my placeholders. So forgive me for not doing that. Save that. No, I don't want to change anything. Now when I go in and I start a new source and pick 1939, ancestry version, I select it, and you see here now I've got the fields I need to fill out for the ancestry copy. Then also I'm filling out the fields for the record that was being cited by ancestry. And you see here that, that both are getting replaced as I go. 11. Here it's the image number from the archives. 22. Borough, comma, district. Thompson. Did I have to fill out household name twice? So why am I filling out household name twice? Well, because when I populated the template, I didn't put a space in household and name. So Evidentia sees these as two different fields and requires you to fill them out both. And when I save this citation, now you see what I get is the ancestry reference, and the reference at ancestry is citing. So if you have a lot of those, this is a good use of creating custom templates. Somebody asked early on, how would you create a template for a cash payment to filing fees? Creating a template, I would create a template exactly the same way that I just showed you every single time. What I don't want to confuse is I'm not claiming to be an expert on what the citation should look like. Do need to start with a good citation. So you may actually be citing your first source, or maybe you find a good one online, or maybe you put one together from Evidence Explained. And then starting from there, then you can copy and paste that into the various fields, replace static fields with dynamic ones, put the angle brackets around if you think they're might not always be populated, etc. But it's not the scope of this particular class to answer questions about individual what individual citation formats are in. And actually, Joseph has just posted in chat the link to Evidence Explained. And I actually went to Evidence Explained to double check the work that Kai had done. So that's kind of how I have to do it as well. When it comes to a question like, how would you create a template for a cash payment? The real question is, what should a citation look like for that kind of record? The Evidence Explained website, they've got a chat and they've got a forum. That's a great place to ask that question. And then once you have the format, then you can come in and come back to Evidentia and create the template for it if you think it's something that you're going to use over and over.